In September 2025, the US Department of State rolled out two of the most significant shifts to the US visa process in more than a decade. These changes affect millions of travelers, students, workers, and families seeking to enter or remain in the United States on non-immigrant visas. The first change took effect on September 2, 2025, when the US significantly rolled back the interview waiver program, commonly known as the drop box. For years, this program allowed many visa applicants, especially renewals in categories like H-1B, L-1, F-1, and B-1/B-2 visitor visas, to skip the in-person interview entirely. That shortcut is now mostly gone. Only a small set of applicants, including certain diplomats and very limited B-1/B-2 renewals, still qualify. Everyone else must attend an in-person interview. The second change followed just a few days later, on September 6, 2025, when the US ended the practice of third country visa stamping. Previously, if the wait times in your home country were too long, you could schedule your visa appointment at a US consulate in another country. Canada and Mexico were particularly popular options. That pathway is now closed for nearly everyone. Going forward, you must book your appointment in your country of citizenship or legal residence, with a few exceptions for applicants from countries where US consulates don't operate, such as Afghanistan, Iran, and Cuba. These two moves are deeply interconnected. By removing the ability to skip interviews and simultaneously limiting where interviews can take place, the US has effectively concentrated an enormous amount of demand into fewer locations, creating longer wait times and tighter timelines for travelers, workers, and students alike. So to navigate this new reality, applicants really need to understand exactly what has changed, how it affects the process, and what actions they should take to minimize risk and, avoid unnecessary delays. For many applicants, the most dramatic change is honestly the rollback of the Dropbox program. To understand why that's such a big deal, we need to take a quick look back at how the program worked before this policy shift. For years, if you had a visa in certain categories, like H-1B for employment, F-1 for students, or B-1/B-2 for business and tourism, you could often renew your visa without attending an in-person interview at all. You just submitted your documents through an authorized collection center, which most people called the Dropbox, and then your case was processed administratively. This saved applicants an enormous amount of time and helped consulates manage their workloads by, prioritizing first-time applicants and high-risk cases for interviews. That system has largely disappeared. Now, most visa categories that previously qualified for Dropbox are no longer eligible. H-1B and L-1 workers, students on F or J visas, and business visitors on B-1 or B-2 visas will almost always be required to attend an in-person interview. There are only a few exceptions. Certain diplomatic and official visas, such as A, G, and NATO categories, remain exempt. Additionally, a very narrow set of B-1 or B-2 visitor visa renewals within 12 months of expiration may still qualify. But even those applicants must meet strict conditions, such as having never been refused a visa before and applying in their country of residence. The impact of this change is immediate and significant. It means that millions of applicants who previously avoided interviews are now competing for the same limited number of appointment slots at US embassies and consulates. This will inevitably lead to longer wait times, particularly in high-demand countries like India, China, and Brazil. And because there are now far fewer exemptions, entire families, including children and elderly dependents, must appear for interviews when applying together, further straining consular resources. For applicants, this new reality requires a shift in planning. You can no longer assume your renewal will be quick or straightforward. Applications should be started much earlier, ideally 6 to 9 months before your intended travel, to account for potential scheduling delays. Families should coordinate their applications so that appointments can be aligned, and employers and universities should prepare for longer lead times when onboarding workers or students who need visas. Even if you believe you may still qualify for Dropbox, you should prepare your documents and timelines as though an interview will be required, since consular officers now have broader discretion to mandate in-person appearances, even for otherwise eligible applicants. Just 4 days after the Dropbox rollback came into effect, the United States introduced another major policy change: the end of third country visa stamping. For many years, applicants facing long appointment delays in their home countries had the option of applying for their visa in another country, typically one where United States consulates had shorter wait times. Canada and Mexico were popular destinations for Indian and Chinese applicants, while some travelers used Singapore, Thailand, or the Gulf states to bypass local backlogs. That option is now gone for nearly everyone. Under the new rule, visa applicants must schedule their appointments in their country of citizenship or legal residence. If you live in India, you must apply there. If you live in China, you must apply there. Now, there are a few exceptions, but honestly they apply only to nationals from countries where the United States doesn't operate any consulates or embassies. For example, Afghans are directed to Islamabad, Iranians to Dubai, Russians to Warsaw or Astana, and Cubans to Georgetown. But, these alternate posts are already under significant strain, and appointment availability at these locations is extremely limited. So this change has two major consequences. First, the flexibility applicants once had to bypass long wait times is gone, which means high-demand consulates are now under unprecedented pressure. Second, there's a financial risk. Visa fees paid to book appointments in third countries are now non-refundable and non-transferable. If you mistakenly schedule your interview in a country where you're no longer eligible to apply, you lose your payment and have to start over. For applicants, the takeaway is straightforward, but, honestly, critical. Always book your interview in your home country unless you've verified that you qualify for one of the limited exceptions. So, before you pay any fees, make sure you check your eligibility. And honestly, it's wise to prepare for longer timelines, especially if you're coming from a country with historically high visa demand. While each of these policy shifts is significant on its own, the real impact really comes from how they combine. Previously, applicants had two important tools to navigate the US visa system: the Dropbox program, which allowed many to skip interviews, and third country stamping, which let applicants bypass local delays. Both pathways have now been, largely closed. The result is a perfect storm of demand, all concentrated into fewer consulates. More people now require in-person interviews, but there are fewer locations available to process them. Wait times are already rising, and some posts, especially in India, China, and Brazil, are expected to experience record-setting delays, possibly stretching into several months or even over a year. For families, students, and workers on tight timelines, these delays could mean postponed program start dates, disrupted travel plans, or missed onboarding windows for new jobs. This is why, applicants need to be more strategic than ever. Start your visa application early, ideally 6 to 9 months before you plan to travel. Monitor appointment availability at your local consulate, stay updated through the State Department's official website, and coordinate with your employer, school, or family members to manage expectations and timelines. For those from countries without US visa operations, it's important to learn which alternate consulates are designated for your nationality and begin monitoring their appointment calendars now. The September 2025 changes represent a fundamental restructuring of how US non-immigrant visas are processed. Where the system once offered multiple avenues for flexibility, shortcuts through Dropbox eligibility, and options to apply in third countries, those avenues are now gone for most applicants. The new rules concentrate demand into fewer posts, increase unpredictability, and require applicants to take a much more proactive and deliberate approach to planning. For anyone seeking a US visa, the message is clear. Start early, verify eligibility, prepare thoroughly, and build flexibility into your timelines. The visa process has become more complex and less forgiving, but with the right information and preparation, you can navigate these changes successfully.